My name is Ruth McLaren. I am the project coordinator and carbon literacy trainer for Arran EcoSavvy. I'm here this afternoon just to give a bit of insight into the film club that we've been running over the spring and summer. I'll just start off with a little bit of background. So Arran EcoSavvy is an environmental organisation based on the Isle of Arran. We are now into year 2 of a 2-year multi-strand project. This is covered by our lovely team who you can see here. We have Charlotte, who deals with energy and water efficiency. Then we have Jess, who is the sustainable food coordinator. Our boss, Jude, who is the project manager. Andrew and Emma are the travel and transport coordinators, and then there's myself, who is the project coordinator and carbon literacy trainer. So at the start of the year, obviously, like many of the other CCF projects, I imagine, we had lots planned for spring and summer in terms of events. We had a festival planned, which we obviously unfortunately had to cancel when COVID struck. 4 of the events that we had planned were film nights, which we'd done before with good levels of success. So even though we were obviously very disappointed to have to cancel them, we thought that these were quite a good option for something that we could switch to an online format. And then we had the idea of actually starting a film club. So we started that off and just thought, right, we'll see how it goes. And if it worked, great. And if it didn't, we'd try something else. So how does it work? So to start off with, we decided on the frequency, timing and themes of the event. So for the frequency, we decided on weekly because it was the start of lockdown and people were actively looking for distractions. So we felt that it could bear that amount of frequency. We also wanted to provide consistency to the community. In terms of timings, we decided on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. We decided on this by looking at what other activities were happening with other groups on the island and made sure that we just didn't clash with anyone else. For the themes, we used our 4 project strands as the general framework for the content of our film nights. This meant that we had a good range of subjects and that we could spread the workload across the team. So different people, so the food coordinator took on the promotion and the organising of the food film, for example. Next, you have to source the film. This is one of the most time-consuming things probably that you're going to do in the whole process. Things to think about are relevance to your community. So whether they're UK or US based. Obviously, if they're US based, you need to think about whether they're still going to be relevant for UK audience and a Scottish audience. How old the film is, so you still want the information to be in date. The length of the film is also quite an important consideration. Do you show shorts? Do you show feature length films? Do you show, hour-long documentaries? And then lastly, the messaging is quite an important thing that we considered. Obviously, during the time of a pandemic, people have quite high anxiety, and you don't really want to be adding to that by screening films and putting messaging out there that is really heavy and depressing. So that's another thing to consider. Licensing. So there's a lot of films that you can get for free, which is great. If you are going for a film that needs a license, do just bear in mind that this can be quite time consuming. So just make sure you give yourself time to do that. So we've discovered that a lot of the distribution companies are not actually based in the UK. So in those instances, just make sure you kind of factor in that there's a time difference and people might not reply to you straight away. Another thing is blockbusters and new releases. They're really great and kind of a big draw for people, but they are harder to source and have a higher cost for the license. I would recommend, looking at small production companies and amateur filmmakers, and there's a lot of kind of unknown films out there that you can show that people haven't already seen before. So for promotion, we promote our film nights on a dedicated Facebook event for each one, and then we obviously promote it through our social media and our website. We also have a local community Facebook page, which is really kind of well used by our community on Arran. So we can post on there, and we've seen that we get a big bump in the analytics of people viewing the page and then signing up after it's been seen on the community Facebook page. So if you have anything similar in your community, do make use of that. We're also really lucky to have been supported quite well by our local newspaper, the Arran Banner. They've featured us a couple of times in news articles and things like that. Another thing that we do is we send out an e-newsletter every week. We use this to obviously advertise the film, but also talk about issues and just get people thinking about the issues that we're going to be discussing in the film beforehand. So that's that. Yep. And then instructions. So this is quite simple. You just send out an email to the people that have registered with clear instructions on how to join. They then watch the film. So we send out, we don't screen it via Zoom or anything. We send out the link so that people can watch the film on their own devices. We encourage people to do this all at the same time, which for us is 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And then that means if everybody starts watching at 7, they can then join the discussion straight away afterwards. And we do this via, generally we do this on our Facebook event page on the discussion tab. So people can just join, watch the film, join the discussion, and type in comments and have conversations on there. We find this works very well. We've also used Zoom very successfully, but we have found that it's much more time consuming. It's a much more in-depth process to use Zoom. So we do use Zoom for certain events, but we mix and match between the Facebook event and Zoom. But it just depends on what you want out of your event and the format that you're most comfortable with and that you think your community might be most comfortable with as well. Lastly, we have Followup. So we do this via a survey, which we send out to people who've registered for the film. This is great for CCF reporting stats and things like that, but also for us to improve our event. So we ask questions like, were you inspired by the film? Did you like the film? Were you inspired to take any action from watching the film? If you were inspired, do you need help, linking to organisations, or do you need help from us that we might be able to help with for you to complete your climate change action? And we also ask for suggestions for improvements or recommendations for films that people might have that they want to share with us. So I've just included this graph which shows the number of participants registered for each of our film nights that we've had. I've also included the CCF groups we've collaborated with on these specific nights. I would really recommend doing this if you're going to hold a film night or even a film club. It just means you can see that there's definite spikes where we've collaborated with other groups. So you definitely get a wider reach. You can screen films that have kind of some of the films have quite a high license fee. So if you want to screen one of them, you can share the cost between yourself and another CCF group. And most importantly, it's really nice to get new voices in the discussions that you have after your films. So this is my page of top tips. Don't underestimate the time it takes to find and organise a film. We've nearly fallen foul of this a couple of times and it can be quite stressful. Collaborate with other CCF groups and external organisations. Link film themes to local issues, organisations and actions. The film nights we've found are great opportunities for team learning. All of us at the team have been really pleased with what we personally have got from watching and sharing these films and being part of the film club. And lastly, just remember that you can't please everybody. You might get the odd negative comment, like some people might not like the film or have negative inputs. But I have to say that overwhelmingly we've received positive feedback from our community, and this is definitely something that you should be focusing on rather than any negative comments. Just a wee shout out here that we have got a something that we lovingly refer to as the mega sheet within the team. It's basically like a massive spreadsheet of all the films that we've come across that we thought might be good potentially for film screenings. Obviously, we've not watched them all, but we've just kept them all in this big spreadsheet to come back to, and all the team kind of refer to it when it's their turn to host the film club. It's split up into different sections. So there's a food section, energy, climate justice, all those kinds of things. There is also a tab on there with a list of all the films that we've screened to date, and with info either linking to the free version of the film or information on how to get the license, who to contact, the cost, and all those kinds of things. So if you're interested in any of the films we've screened previously, the information will be on that spreadsheet. It's in the files section of the CCF Microsoft Teams. So just, as I say, feel free to go in there and have a wee look. Okay, and lastly, just going back to the point about making your film nights locally relevant, this slide shows some of the non-CCF groups that we've worked with for some of the film nights. We realised fairly early on that there was a lot of benefit from explicitly connecting the issues covered in the films to give them a real local context. The benefits of this are when you include a local group in your kind of film night and the promotion of it, you're obviously opening up your audience, the audience potential, by tapping into the members or the followers of those specific groups. They also can come in and add valuable insight into the discussion section. Also, by signposting to these organisations to the members of your film club, it allows people to seek out direct action locally. An example of this is the Pioneer Project film, which we screened recently. So the Pioneer Project is a new organisation on Arran. They only started up at the start of COVID because some of them were worried about food security on the island. They've been absolutely amazing. They've managed to get 5 land sites across Arran, which they're going to cultivate for growing fruit and vegetables, and they've already made an amazing start on 3 of the sites actually. So they've made a short film about their plans and their organisation and what they want to do, and we clubbed together with them and screened their film as part of our film club. We did this on Zoom, and then we had them on there answering questions after people had watched the film. So it was really good for them because it helped get word out about a new organisation which a lot of people on the island were unaware even existed. It helped them get volunteers because people came and watched the film and engaged with them through the Q&A, and then were really fired up and wanted to help. So they've got new volunteers to go down to the sites and help growing and planting and clearing the land, what have you. And we were also able to signpost to their GoFundMe page. So they got some donations immediately after the film of people who wanted to support them financially. So that was a really positive event, and we'll continue to work with them on an ongoing basis. So that's me. I hope some of that information was useful if you're thinking about holding a film event or even starting a film club. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ruth. That was really great. Thanks. If you have any questions for Ruth, please pop them in the chat box and we will try and get to them at the end. So next we have Roxana and Eustace from Leith Community Crops in Pots. Here we go.
Okay. I'm just sharing the screen. And you see the PowerPoint presentation, okay?
Yeah, that's working.
Perfect. Yes. Okay, so hello everybody. We are from Leith Community Crops in Pots. I'm Roxana. My colleague Eustace is here as well. Today we're going to talk about our Climate Challenge funded project, which is the Crop Carbon College. It's a center that raises awareness on climate change within the community. We work with different sectors. As you can see on the screen, we work with children as part of our program called Minecraft. We also have a market garden where we work with many volunteers growing food on Leith links on our craft. And then we also have green skills workshops that we deliver with many organizations and local talent through terms. Over to you, Eustace.
Thanks, Roxana. So just the next slide there, Roxana. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I'll tell you a bit about the 7 Easy Steps to a Greener You program, which we have, which is a carbon literacy certified course, which has the idea to give people an intro to climate change and sort of how to take action. It runs for 7 weeks, and it covers all the areas of climate behavior change, so consumption and waste, energy, water, food, and active travel. And we also have an intro session where we go over what climate change is, some climate science, key concepts like climate justice, and an outro session where we sort of practice taking all that forward in our communities and working around values and so on. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so we've been running this program for 3 years now, and we used to run it in our education space in Leith. And one of the things that's most central to the program is the participatory ethic and the community feel of it, where usually we really try to design the sessions so that people can come and dissect the information, really work with it, make it their own, discuss, bring their own thoughts, and also their own skills and what they already know, to learn from each other and just make it a bit more engaging, because we believe that if people sort of make it their own, that empowers them more to actually make a change and feel more confident. And that was the key challenge of bringing this program online. We've run it 3 times now online since the beginning of lockdown. And I just want to share some of the key takeaways, my key takeaways there for you, which is that you can do almost everything you do in a normal workshop online, really. You can be brave and creative in designing loads of exercises for that online format, and it often really pays off to put that extra work into designing your sessions. So I'll tell you some examples now that we used, which are on the next slide. Yeah, so some concrete examples. We always start with a welcome round in every session, so that people sort of can introduce themselves, what their motivation is, where they're from, and sort of, yeah, who they are. And it also helps just sort of create that participatory dynamic right away. And you also, as a facilitator, aren't just droning on continuously. And quite organically, that's actually turned into a weekly eco check-in, where we kind of, as we go through the course, we think about the material from the last week and how we've applied that in this past week, which is that real privilege that we have people over 7 weeks, which really makes those things possible. And it helps really getting to know the group and really adjusting our messages and our communication to what they care about and tying it into where they're coming from, a bit like George Marshall was sharing there in the beginning. Also, we start each session, whenever there's a new participant, I do an intro to Zoom slide or whichever platform you're using to bring everyone up to speed and premeditate any technical issues, because it might just be their first time using this platform and they might be totally overwhelmed and not knowing what to do. So it really helps getting everyone to the same level as much as you can. Also, there are so many energizers and fun little breakups that you can do, like getting people to move or showing things with different colors or so on. Lots of games you can do to just mix it up a little bit and create some of that lightness that you perhaps would have if you were together in person. I also think it's really important to keep pointing out that participation is welcome, that people are welcome to interrupt, to ask questions in the chat, and to build in discussion rounds in your session planning. And with those discussion rounds, my central takeaway there is to wait past that awkward bit where in the beginning probably nobody will share straight away because they'll be thinking about whether they should share or not, and perhaps feel intimidated a bit. So to just really give ample space to allow that. And again, because we have people for so long, people really get used to this participatory style and then start sharing on their own. That's what we found. And lastly, online really helps. You can encourage people to bring family members. We had people bring their moms and their, other people they knew in other parts of the country often, and that obviously creates a whole different dynamic as well if you have family members join like that. Just on the next slide. There's a few things that you can do to use technology creatively. Here's just a few examples, but there's so much you can try. So, for example, in our intro session, we have a group values activity where we can go into different breakout rooms and people can talk in smaller groups and we previously send around the editable slides, so people can actually put what they're discussing right on the slides. And then when everybody comes back together, you have this kind of overview of what the different groups were talking about to really pull it all together then. So that's one thing you could do. And then on the next slide, this is the walk the walk activity. So some of you who might have done the carbon literacy course will know this, where usually we walk across the room to map out the average emissions of a UK resident, and across the room we get a volunteer to move that little smiley across the editable slide, so you still get that kind of similar effect of mapping it out spatially. Then the next slide there, Roxana. Exactly. So there's a few accessibility issues with using technology creatively, and it's also just a word of caution, important not to rely on this when you're planning your sessions. And as you're getting to know your groups, it's you can get to know their tech savviness as well and really adjust to that. And then the next slide there, Roxana. Yeah, just another note there on accessibility. Some people dislike sort of participating in this quite involved way for many reasons, which is absolutely understandable and fine. And I think it's important to emphasize again and again that any form of participation is fine, whether it's with the video on speaking or with a video off and speaking, just using the chat or just listening, that all of that is fine. And it's absolutely important, I think, to not assume people's accessibility needs, but it's worth checking in with them beforehand. What might enable them to participate in a way that suits them. So that's me. Back to you, Roxana.
Thank you, Justus. So when we wanted to translate our climate literacy program, which is the 7 Easy Steps, into an accessible, digital, independent, interactive, and creative format, we therefore designed this app. Just as the 7 Easy Steps, this app covers the same themes that you can see on the screen. For each theme, then we have the following sections. We have the info section, the tips section, and the goals section. So the info section is a video that's delivered by a member of our team, where we explain the impact each theme has on the environment. There is also information about which processes and actions related to the specific theme contribute heavily to carbon emissions. For example, in the video of food, we talk about farming, we talk about footprint, food waste, meat and dairy consumption. For example, in the water video, we talk about the scarcity of water around the world and how that affects global food security. We also talk about how our water footprint is a global environmental justice issue. At the same time, we also provide links to more information in case you want to dig further into the subject. In terms of the tip section is the domain of solutions. It's about what people can do at a personal level to tackle climate change. So when designing the app, we ask ourselves, how can we make it encouraging? How can we make it interactive? So we developed the goals section, and the goals section is where people can commit to taking concrete steps to reducing their carbon footprint. So for each goal that you achieve, you get 5 points. As you can see here on the screen, I achieved already 35 points, and the more points you get free green skills workshops with us. The app also has a green skills workshop section that you can sign up to. We have worked really hard with the team to come up with exciting, creative, and fun online courses. Justus and I got trained to film and edit workshops, and we have also passed on this knowledge into the different facilitators and partners who we deliver workshops with. Here are a few examples of the type of workshops that we have been delivering. We deliver workshops live online. This is an upcycling workshop. What you can see on the screen is the make your own jewelry out of old t-shirts. But we also deliver live courses on plant ID, seed saving, a number of upcycling courses, and also a number of zero food waste workshops. All these courses have climate literacy elements on them. We have also delivered pre-recorded workshops and followed by online Zoom discussions. For example, for the food growing traineeship is a set of 7 workshops that happen over a period of 5 months. What we do is we send the videos 1 month before the Zoom discussion and also some handouts so people have the time to practice, learn the skill, and then they can ask the relevant questions when they meet with the facilitator on the Zoom discussion. This is how the platform looks like. At the same time, we have created packages of pre-recorded online courses per theme. And we are well aware that there is a wide variety of different courses available online for free. So to make it more attractive for our community, we decided to do sets of workshops and or traineeships. For instance, the Sustainable Food Traineeship is a course that helps you from planning your shopping list to how to storage food, and it also teaches you recipes using the most wasted ingredients in the UK. We also have packages on sustainable fashion, fermentation, outdoor clothing repair, and whatnot. So for us, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions is an important goal, but we also want to create healthy, livable, beautiful, economic, resilient communities. So we are working on the development plans on the app. In the future, we hope to have a social feed function as part of the app. And we're hoping that the app is going to encourage people to go out on their bikes and cycle and to go out and grow their own food. Over to you, Justus.
Thanks, Roxana. Well, just to wrap up, just a few little stories or quotes on how it's gone. These are some quotes there from the 7 Easy Steps course that you can see on the slides there. And we're really positive and encouraged that actually we've managed to create that same community feel and that same support system and increased confidence that people have reported with our online course. When we last finished the course, the people were all really excited to keep meeting on a regular basis, which is happening now. So that's really, really encouraging that it does work to create some form of community over online sessions as well. And there on the bottom are 2 examples of people really beautifully taking this forward in their community, growing food on a green space outside of their house, or encouraging school kids to walk to school. So we've really seen some really good responses there, which is very encouraging. And then the next slide, Roxana. Just a little story, I guess, to wrap up, that shows, I think, some of the challenges in online work, but also some of the untapped opportunities that we have there. So this was from an apple cider vinegar workshop that we ran. And we started, like I said, usually how we do it, that we sort of introduce ourselves and people nominate the next person to go, and then they introduce themselves. And it sort of got to one person who had their video off, and they got nominated, and we were waiting, and there was this short moment of silence, and everybody was kind of expecting to see what was going to happen. And after a moment, she wrote on the chat saying that she had autism and that she'd rather not participate speaking or turn the video on. So obviously that's totally fine and understandable, and everybody really tried their best to still create a welcoming environment and to still make them part of the workshop as much as we could. And it turns out that she was a forager and had so much experience to share on knowledge about nature and on how to use apple cider vinegar for foraging. And she became such an essential part of the session by communicating over the chat, which was just really, really beautiful to see. And I think we all finished the session with a really good feeling. And then afterwards, she wrote me a mail and also created this Instagram post, which you can see here on the slide, telling us how she had sort of paced up and down her room all day in anxiety because she had never used Zoom before, and how encouraged she felt after, being such an important part of the session. So I think there's still so much that we can discover and that we can harness out of this online technology. So we're just scratching the surface of that, and much more to do there.
Mm-hmm. Just very quickly, a last quote as well. The college is also a hub for local talent and for social enterprises and other organizations that work on sustainability. So we have, during the pandemic, we have, because we managed to adapt to online delivery of workshops, we have continued generating opportunities for members of our community to deliver workshops with us, which has been greatly appreciated. This is a quote from one of our partners, which is Remote Collective, we have been delivering some of the courses online. So this is it. This is us. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana and Eustace. That was a really great presentation. Thank you. Okay, so we have time for some questions. So if anybody wants to post any questions on the chat, that would be fine. I have a quick question for Roxana and Eustace. I was interested in the app. Is it for people based locally, or can anybody nationwide connect to it?
Well, this is what we wanted to do. We felt that the Green Skills, the 7 Easy Steps program was really rich on the content. So it is available to anybody who wants to download anywhere. You can download it on Android and app, and yeah, it's for the rest of the world.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then for Ruth, I wanted to know, did you find the change from physical to digital film night a smooth transition, or was it a bit more tricky than that?
I would say, I mean, there's challenges to both. We have held film nights previously, like physical film nights, where we've had low attendance, and we've held ones which had great attendance. So it's always a worry that you're going to get people attending really any event, and this was a bit of a concern for the film club as well. Personally, you know, it was a bit, you know, there are tech concerns with holding it online. You know, personally, I was worried because I'd chosen the film, and then I was like, you know, the first film, I was like, oh, is it going to be received well? Are people going to like it? Or are people going to hate it? I think there's always an element of kind of worry whenever you do an event, and it's still there if you're doing physical events or online events, I find. But generally, we found it to have been taken up pretty positively by the community, and it's nice because people don't necessarily see it as an environmental action. They don't necessarily see it as a climate change event. They see it more as a film club, because we've really made the effort to show, okay, some documentaries, but also some more light-hearted films and fictional films. And this week we're currently screening a children's film, the first kids film that we've done. So we're trying different things all the time. But yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons and different concerns with both the physical events and the online events. But yeah, it's touch wood, it's going okay so far. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. I think we have one question. I think to either of your presentations, but do you have any initiative? Do any of the initiatives have intergenerational dimensions, as in this is something planned for, not just something that happens naturally?
Maybe I can just say something very quickly on that. We definitely don't enough. So that's a really, really great pointer and input there, Kate. Thank you so much for saying that. And I really agree that there's such a need for more of that. I think the one thing that I'd mentioned that we've tried, like I said, in the 7 Easy Steps, is to encourage people to bring their folks along. So that has mostly been then people bringing their parents along. That is something really worth trying if you have anything more long-term, because like also George Marshall said, then people within people's own communities, their families will start sort of getting that ball rolling. But that's definitely something we still want to build on.
I would say, as same as Eustace, actually, we don't intentionally, but yeah, I mean, this is something that I might think about going forward. Having said that, I mean, the event that we have, the film that we have on at the moment is a children's film, but obviously it does depend on adults to, get registered for the children, and we kind of encourage them to watch as families. So the kids and the parents watching the film together, and also with the kids film that we have this week, we've got an action which is a treasure hunt up to one of the local community woodlands, because the film is about tree planting. So when we were thinking about trying to make that locally relevant, we contacted the local community woodland and asked if we could use their site in some way. And so I went up, and we've got some seed packs which we got from an organisation in Ayrshire, and I've just put some seed packs up in there as a treasure hunt for the kids. But obviously they would have to go up as a family because it's a little bit of a trek up into the woods. So that's a touch on an intergenerational thing that we've come across, but actually that's something that I will definitely think about going forward. Thank you, Kate.
I just want to add one point there, if that's okay. I sort of immediately thought about sort of more reaching towards older generations, like grandparents' generations. But what we do have a lot is family workshops, so that are more targeted towards kids, but so that their parents come along, which has been a really, really wonderful way to engage families in sort of a playful way into climate action. So it will often be things like whittling or making toys or sort of making fires and playing outside, but expressly with the idea of parents coming along, because that's something so important to harness, because kids know and think about climate change a lot, in my experience. And to really try to facilitate those conversations more is something that is really valuable.
Yeah, we have also noticed that a great entrance point for people to get involved in the climate literacy workshops is our green skills workshops, because people tend to want to learn a skill and relax and meet people. But that was a way for us to share our 70 steps program and encourage people to come and join like a course that's more focused on what to do in terms of climate change. How can I do my bit as an individual? Then one thing that we have noticed as well is there is a lot more women attending the workshops than men. So it's something that is clearly noticed, isn't it, Justus? Yes. I don't know if it happens the same with the film nights.
We have a mix, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think, can we just squeeze one last question in, which is, what do you think the key learnings from doing things online will be when we come out of the pandemic, so into the real world?
I would say adaptability and just being able to try things. For us as an organisation, our project manager Jude is very kind of, right, you come up with an idea and she's like, right, let's do it. So we do have quite a kind of a push forward attitude, and sometimes that can be quite challenging if you're not fully on board. I don't feel like I'm great with tech, but if you just kind of make yourself do it, then there's outcomes. And I feel like in our community we have an older demographic, but we've seen so many people embrace Zoom, embrace kind of the tech side of things, and I think that's going to be a positive thing coming out of the pandemic, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you go first, Roxana.
No, I just wanted to say that it clearly has been a challenge, what's happening over these past few months. But what I can take away from it is the community spirit that has come out from it. Like the college, for instance, has around 20 partners in different organizations that we work with, and sharing the skills and learning from the difficulties that we are facing together has made a real difference. And I think that will be, that will continue in the future.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think what I'm most hopeful about is from an educational perspective, or actually running things together, is new forms of solidarity, both globally and across different values groups, because I feel already in the 70 steps, we were able to reach such a much wider audience that then actually they get to talk to each other, which perhaps, as strange and sad as it is, so many people live in their bubbles and don't often talk outside of that. And that is, you can scale that up so much to hear from people around the world, around their struggles, and learn really much more than our sort of local perspective. So I really hope for more solidarity.
Great, thank you. That's all we have time for. So I just want to thank Ruth, Roxana and Eustace. Thank you for your presentations today. They've been great. I think we just got a break now before the next session. So enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.